Good Thursday morning, Patriots. Welcome back to O'Connor's Right Stand. I'm your host, John O'Connor, software programmer by day, conservative truth seeker by night. On Tuesday morning, French police raided Elon Musk's office in Paris. And yesterday, the House Judiciary Committee held a hearing on something most Americans don't even know is happening. Foreign governments censoring your speech online. This isn't some future threat, Patriots. This is happening right now. European bureaucrats are deciding what you can say on American platforms. And if companies don't comply, billion-dollar fines. Today we are talking about the Digital Services Act, the raid on X, Marco Rubio's sanctions against European censorship operatives, and why this is the biggest threat to American free speech since the founding. The Right Stand starts now. Let's start with Tuesday's raid, because the timing here is no accident. French authorities sent their cybercrime unit to X's Paris offices. They are investigating what they call unlawful data extraction, and get this, complicity in the possession of child pornography. Now, does that sound like a legitimate investigation? Or does it sound like they're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks? The Paris prosecutor's office announced the raid on X, the very platform they are investigating, and then said they'd stop posting on X entirely. Find us on LinkedIn and Instagram instead. And I quote that. Think about the optics there, Patriots. We are raiding your company, we are investigating you for serious crimes, and by the way, we are not using your platform anymore. That's not law enforcement, that's virtue signaling. Musk and Linda Yaccarino have been ordered to Paris for questioning on April 20th in their capacity as managers of X at the time of the events. What events? They won't say specifically, but the investigation started last year looking into X's algorithms, whether they are biased. Biased towards what? Free speech? Conservative voices? Content the French government doesn't like? And now the investigation has expanded to include deepfakes, child pornography, Holocaust denialism, basically every hot-button issue they can think of to justify going after Musk. Here's what Musk actually did that got their attention. He refused to comply with Europe's censorship demands. He said no when the European Commission offered what he called an illegal secret deal. If X would quietly censor speech without telling anyone, they wouldn't fine the platform. And you know what? Facebook took that deal. Google took that deal. Every other major platform took that deal. They agreed to censor Americans to keep European regulators happy. Musk did not. He said, if you want to censor people, we are going to be transparent about it. And Europe, they essentially lost their minds. So now, French police are raiding offices. Prosecutors are summoning executives, all under the cover of protecting children and fighting misinformation. But let me ask you this, Patriots. If this were really about child safety, why did they announce the raid on social media? Why make it public spectacle? Why turn it into a political statement? Because this isn't law enforcement. This is intimidation. Now, let's talk about the law they're using to justify all of this. The European Union's Digital Services Act, the DSA, passed in 2022, fully implemented in 2024. And Patriots, this law, to us, is terrifying if you care about free speech. Here's how it works. The DSA says online platforms have to prevent illegal content and misinformation from spreading. I guess sounds reasonable, right? Who wants illegal content online? But here's the trick. Europe gets to define what's illegal and what's misinformation. Not American courts, not the First Amendment, European bureaucrats. If the European Commission decides your platform isn't doing enough to censor content they don't like, they can fine you up to 6% of your global revenue. Let that sink in. Global revenue, not just what you make in Europe, everything, worldwide. For a company like Meta or Google or X, 6% of global revenue is billions of dollars. That's not a slap on the wrist. That's an existential threat. So, what do companies do? They comply. They censor content in America to keep European regulators happy, because if they don't, they face bankruptcy-level fines. This is called the Brussels effect, patriots. Europe passes a law, American companies change their global policies to comply, and suddenly, Americans lose free speech rights because some unelected bureaucrat in Belgium decided your tweet was misinformation. In December, the EU fined X $140 million for allegedly violating the DSA. Musk's response? He shared a House Judiciary Committee report showing the EU has been pressuring American platforms to censor speech since 2015. That report found the EU successfully pressured social media platforms to censor true information in the United States. Not false, true. They targeted U.S. political content for censorship, and they interfered in elections across Europe. Secretary of State Marco Rubio called it what it is. The European Commission's fine isn't just an attack on X. It's an attack on all American tech platforms and the American people by foreign governments. End quote. And you know what Musk did? He reposted Rubio's statement and said, absolutely. Because this is not about protecting users. This is about control. It's always about control. But it's not just the EU, patriots. The United Kingdom has its own censorship law, the Online Safety Act. Same basic idea. Platforms have to monitor content, remove harmful material, or face massive fines. And UK regulators decide what's harmful. Not you, not me, not American courts, them. And the UK is already using this law to crack down. They have opened formal investigations into X. They are threatening to ban the platform entirely if Musk doesn't comply. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna said if the UK bans X, she will introduce legislation to sanction the UK government. She said this is a political war against Elon Musk and free speech. But think about what the UK has already done with free speech, patriots. They arrested a man for burning a Quran. They convicted a pro-life activist for praying in her head outside an abortion clinic. That's not an exaggeration. A woman stood near an abortion clinic, didn't speak, didn't hold a sign, just prayed silently, and they arrested her. More than 12,000 people in the UK are arrested every year for things they say online. 12,000 people. And now they want to export that system to America by forcing our tech companies to comply with their speech codes. Vice President J.D. Vance called them out directly in February of last year at the Munich Security Conference. He said European courts are canceling elections. He said EU officials are threatening to cancel each other. And he told them, in Washington, there's a new sheriff in town. Europe didn't listen. So now they are finding out what that means. In December, Marco Rubio did something no previous administration ever did. He sanctioned 5 European censorship operatives, banned them from entering the United States, said if they are currently here, they can be expelled. Rubio called their actions extraterritorial censorship and said the Trump administration will no longer tolerate these egregious acts. Who did he sanction? Well, let me tell you about a few. Thierry Breton, former EU commissioner, the guy who architected the Digital Services Act, the mastermind behind Europe's censorship regime. He's the one who told Musk the Wild West is over and warned him to censor content or face consequences. Imran Ahmad, British citizen, founder of the Center for Countering Digital Hate. The group runs campaigns to demonetize conservative media. They have targeted Breitbart, The Daily Wire, Fox News, trying to get advertisers to boycott them. Annalena von Hodenberg and Josephine Balloon, leaders of Hate Aid in Germany. They advise the German government on enforcing the DSA. One of them literally said on 60 Minutes, free speech needs boundaries. And Claire Melford, runs the Global Disinformation Index, which created blacklists of conservative news sites to cut off their advertising revenue. These aren't just random bureaucrats, patriots. These are activists using government power and taxpayer money to silence American voices. And Rubio said, "Not anymore. You want to censor Americans? You are not welcome in America." The EU freaked out. They threatened retaliation. They said this violates international norms. You know what I say? Good. Let them be mad. Maybe they will think twice before trying to control our speech. So yesterday, the House Judiciary Committee held a hearing on all of this. And patriots, what came out was damning. The hearing was titled European Nations Attempt to Censor Americans Online. Chairman Jim Jordan led it, and the testimony revealed just how deep this goes. British Member of Parliament Nigel Farage testified. He told Congress that European censorship laws don't just threaten Americans, they threaten Europeans too. He said free speech is dying in Europe and America is the last hope. Alliance Defending Freedom International submitted testimony saying Europe wants to be the global leader in censorship. They documented how the DSA is being used to silence political speech, religious speech, and conservative viewpoints. One lawyer testified that during COVID, the EU pressured platforms to delete hundreds of thousands of posts questioning mask mandates and lockdowns. Not posts spreading false medical information, posts questioning government policy. Just think about that. European bureaucrats decided Americans couldn't question whether masks work, and they got Facebook and Twitter to delete those posts. The House Judiciary GOP report that came out yesterday showed the EU has been doing this since 2015, a decade of interfering with American speech. They pressure platforms to censor hate speech, which is whatever they say it is. They target conservative content. They find companies that don't comply fast enough. And the craziest part, they do it all behind closed doors. Most censorship under the DSA happens behind the veil. No transparency, no appeals, no due process. Your post just disappears and you never know why. That's not regulation, patriots. That's authoritarianism. Now let me explain why this issue should matter to you, even if you don't use X, even if you don't care about Elon Musk. Because this isn't about one platform or one billionaire. This is about who controls speech in America. Right now, if you post something online that a foreign government doesn't like, they can pressure the platform to delete it. They can fine the company billions. They can threaten executives with prosecution. And because these companies operate globally, they apply European censorship rules to American users. You think you have First Amendment rights? Not if a EU bureaucrat says your post is misinformation. You think you can criticize your government? Not if the UK says that's harmful content. This is sovereignty, patriots. This is about whether America gets to decide what Americans can say or whether we hand that power to foreign governments. And let me tell you what happens if we don't fight back. Europe keeps expanding these laws. More countries adopt them, tech companies comply globally, and within 5 years, there's no free speech online anywhere. We become like China, where the government monitors every word and punishes dissent. Except instead of the CCP, it's unelected EU bureaucrats doing the censoring. Is that the future you want for your kids, patriots? It's not what I want. So this all begs the question. What's the Trump administration doing about this? First, Rubio's sanctions, banning foreign censorship operatives from entering the U.S. That's just the start. Second, yesterday's hearing, putting this issue on the record, building a case for congressional action. Third, expect more sanctions. Rubio has made it clear, if you are a foreign official interfering with American speech, you are not welcome here. Fourth, potential tariffs. If Europe wants to fine American companies billions, maybe we start fining European companies doing business here. See how they like it. Fifth, diplomatic pressure. The State Department is making this a priority in negotiations with European allies. And sixth, a cultural shift. Trump, Vance, Rubio, they are all calling this out publicly. They are making it politically toxic for European leaders to keep pushing censorship. But here's the question. Will it be enough? Because Europe isn't backing down. France just raided X's offices. The UK is threatening to ban the platform. The EU keeps investigating and fining American companies. This is a fight, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. So, what can you do about this? First, speak up. Share this episode. Tell people what's happening. Most Americans have no idea foreign governments are censoring their speech. Second, support platforms that resist. Musk is taking massive heat for refusing to comply with European censorship demands. Support X. Support Rumble. Support platforms that prioritize free speech over European approval. Third, contact your representatives. Tell them you want action. Sanctions aren't enough. We need legislation protecting American speech from foreign interference. Fourth, be skeptical of fact checkers and misinformation labels. A lot of that is driven by European pressure. When you see content flagged as false information, ask yourself, false according to who? And fifth, remember this when you vote. The Trump administration is fighting for your speech rights. The Biden administration handed them over to Europe without a fight. Elections have consequences, Patriots, and free speech is on the ballot. Patriots, it's that time again, so let me go ahead and bring this home. On Tuesday, French police raided Elon Musk's offices in Paris. They summoned him to appear for questioning, all under the guise of investigating cybercrime. But this isn't about cybercrime. It's about censorship. Europe has spent a decade building a global censorship regime. The Digital Services Act, the Online Safety Act, laws that let foreign governments decide what Americans can say online. And they enforce it with billions in fines, $140 million to X in December. They are investigating Meta, Apple, everyone. Yesterday, the House Judiciary Committee held a hearing on European censorship. The testimony was damning. EU officials have been pressuring platforms since 2015 to censor true information, target conservative content, and interfere in elections. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has sanctioned 5 European censorship operatives, banned them from America, called their actions extraterritorial censorship. Vice President J.D. Vance told Europe last year, in Washington, there's a new sheriff in town. They didn't listen, so now they are beginning to find out. But this fight is far from over, Patriots. Europe isn't backing down, and if we don't push back hard, American free speech dies. Not because Congress passes a law, not because the Supreme Court allows it, but because we surrender control to foreign governments who don't believe in the First Amendment. That's the choice. Fight now or lose free speech forever. I know which side I'm on. Well, hit that subscribe, follow, and or like button wherever you're listening. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, your platform of choice. Check out O'Connor's Quick Strike on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for rapid-fire news, and this podcast, as always, drops on Tuesdays into Thursdays. Find me on X at O'Connor Podcasts. Share this episode. People need to understand what's happening. Have a great rest of your day, Patriots. Until next Tuesday, hold the line unapologetically. This is John O'Connor, signing off.